Get my posture.
And we are live.
Hey everyone, welcome to TTSN, Transformational Squirrel Network, where we make shift happen. Today we want to welcome our guest, Shawna Morrow. Shawna is a certified hypnotherapist. She's certified in magnetic mind, meditation, and is a mindfulness life coach. Shawna, welcome to TTSN. We're excited to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me, ladies. It's going to be good.
It sure is. So can you tell us a little bit, Shawna, about what a coach for creation is? Because I know that that's part of what you do.
Yeah, I pretty much encompassed like a lot of my training into coach for creation. Simply because we are creating our lives, right? And a lot of us don't take that power that we have to create our life. And so I work with people on really getting into what their choices to make in their life and not let the external world to take over for them. So we get into really getting crystal clear on what that outcome is and start creating their life, because we have so much more control than we've been led to believe.
Right.
And it's easy to get sidetracked with so much negative in this world and just be encompassed with that and just like become victims or feel like we're victims. And we really aren't. We're here to have growth, evolve into something more and not just sit in our comfort space, which is easier for most of us.
Oh, it's
so growth is uncomfortable. So I always say get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Right. And just keep moving beyond that for sure.
We'll come back to that because I think that's a great point. Can you tell us how you got started in this kind of work? What led you to this?
Well, there has been a whole lot of steps before I got to this.
Okay.
I've always felt there's been more, and I just never understood. Like bit of a toxic home. And so I just felt like there was so much more. Like I felt like so depressed growing up. I always made myself wrong because that was kind of what was pushed on you. You doing things wrong, everything's right or wrong, good or bad. And I just felt so much more. And then I had, in my early adulthood, I had my first child. I ended up losing. And that was just kind of like a trigger. I could have either went either way. And for me, it was just, that was enough. Time to change. And I started going into a lot of energy and healing modalities. And I'm certified in a lot of those too. And over time, I still felt there was something missing. Like you would get so much, you'd start feeling better, but it was like sometimes you'd bounce back. And then I got fascinated with the mind. And then that led to hypnotherapy, magnetic mind. And since then, it's just been a complete game changer in my life. I'm no longer trying to problem solve my life or fix myself. I'm here to create. And so when you're creating, what you originally thought was an issue or a problem, it either just goes away or it solves itself. Right. So it's no longer focusing on that. So yeah, that's kind of how I became where I'm at now. And it just evolved into this. And I love it because I not only help myself, my family, but I help like clients and stuff who are ready to make the change. Some think they are and they're not, and that's okay too.
Right.
We're all here to be on our own journey, and we're all at different stages. And I'm not here to tell you which is right or wrong, but if you're ready to create, I'm here to help you.
Absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look back and I think of life and getting to the point where I'm at right now, and I think of, sometimes life seems to interrupt, right? It's like you're just living. You're not living on purpose, right? You're not living through that creation mode. It's just you're living to live.
Yeah.
And so I think, is that where you're taking people from, that place?
Yeah, it's kind of like you don't know how to get out of your own situation because we only know what we know. And if we get caught up in our head, we get stuck in the limited thinking process of things. And we don't really know how to get past that. So that's where I come in and get more crystal clear on where they're going, because we get stuck with like the mundane life and just like, well, this and now this happening. And then a lot of times we get ourselves sidetracked with money issues. That's such a huge thing for people. And then they make it about money. And I'll tell you, it's never about money. Like literally never about money. Or we try to lose weight. I'm here to tell you, it's never about the weight itself. There is a internal mindset, or there is an emotional set that you had a long time ago that got you stuck. So there was an emotional or a past belief structure that is your original creation, that we uncreate that. We don't like change memories, but when you no longer have the emotional attachment to it or the original fear of that belief, you're now free of it and you have the wisdom, and you no longer have to look through that filter and you move past it. So you're no longer a victim to your own life.
Right.
So it's simple, but yet it's not.
Right.
Like the process itself is simple, but when we're dealing with our own stuff, it takes like repetition, or it takes to get to that core issue or that core creation what we created. And sometimes it's like, boom, it's done. The next time it takes a little bit, because our mind likes to keep us safe. And what is safe is what's familiar.
Right.
So if being in abusive relationships familiar, sometimes it's not ready to let go of what's really holding it in place. So you will need a few sessions to get to that. So it's like clearing a path. So it's like when you clear part of the path, you might not be the original creation of that, but what you create stays gone. And then you just keep coming back, and then you get to it. And like I said, sometimes when people are ready to change, even big stuff will just go. Just you're ready, and it's just like you're kind of sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Right.
And you're really ready. So your mind and body will only take you as far as what's safe for you in the moment anyway. So I can never take you further than that anyway. So when you're ready, it's just sometimes change is just, and those are like I always say, like that's my high. When I see people like change for themselves, like yeah, I don't need no drugs. Like that's my high. Like that's I get excited when people are coming like, okay, this is how I'm reacting different, or I don't do this anymore. It's exciting. It's
right.
You got to celebrate your change. And sometimes it might look like little to somebody else, but it's big for you if you've hung on to it for a while.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
That's like, it's exciting. I find it exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're able to, sorry, go ahead, Cindy.
Do you think that it leads back to not being aware that you're kind of stuck in that habit or belief system?
Not being aware is part of just not being aware of maybe what the original issue is, but you got to realize that we function only 10% on our conscious mind, conscious memory. The rest is locked in unconsciously over like 90% or more. So we can be aware of like maybe there is a belief thing or like a trauma that's holding us back, but not necessarily being aware of it is going to let it go.
Right.
But it is a start to be aware of what's stopping you, so then you can make that choice to do a different habit or go to somebody that's going to help you release that safely, especially if it is a trauma. But if it's something that's not very big, you can create it by repetition, creating a different habit.
Right. It's interesting that we're talking about this, because I was having a conversation with a friend today about vaccines, actually.
Okay,
and
yeah.
she was saying that, you know, when her kids were little, she didn't ask any questions. The nurse called and they talked, you know, that you have to come in and bring your kids in for the vaccine at this time, date, or whatever. And she said, you know, it's so crazy because I didn't know I had the choice, right? And so, like, that's kind of what you're speaking about, right? Is we live in that subconscious mind for so long that we don't even realize we have a choice until one day we do.
That's like take your power back. I always say that everything you receive is information. You have the choice. So when you go to a doctor, they have information, right? So they're going to come with you like majority, this medication works for majority, but you got to realize you're an individual. You're not part of that statistic. What if you were the different percentage? So that's where you have to step in. So it doesn't mean the doctor's wrong. He's just giving you information. You have to come from your own awareness and your choice. Like you got to take your power back. But we've been brought up so much that we give our power away to doctors, to anybody with authority, where it's just untrue. It might be good for us. It might be our truth to listen to the doctor this time, but next time it might not.
Right.
So it's about taking your power back with awareness, but also we unfortunately have some gunk in the past that might be holding us back. And we don't have to grudge up all our past. We just have to decide where we're going, and whatever comes up, change that.
Right.
Because if we try to go back and try to heal everything from our past, that will be your lifetime of problem solving and healing your past. Like, let's be honest, because when you're a little kid, think somebody could have just said something to you, hurt your feelings. You didn't deal with those emotions. Now you have old emotions stuck in you because you didn't decide to do that. And as an adult, we can look back, someone said something hurtful. You're like, oh, that's not a big deal. But you have to look through it through the child's eyes, not your adult eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, so it's, but yeah, like that awareness and that choice. And I find just so many people just give it away. And that's part of like your inner knowing. There's no, the inner knowing isn't logic. And it isn't, you don't have reason for that inner knowing, which your mind likes reasoning. It likes like the information, the logic. So then when you're trying to go into this knowing and that instinct, it kind of hijacks, the mind hijacks you. No, like it goes into fear, it goes into doubt, it goes into worry. And it's like, no, don't do this. And where it's like, you're actually not your mind, you're in charge of it. But no one's taught us to be that.
Right.
Because everything is like, you got to learn this, you got to know this, you go to school, you do all this. Great. It is. Knowledge is power. Absolutely. I'm not saying don't educate yourself, but it is only a part of who you are. It's not who you are.
Right.
So it's like, use your logic for the things that you need to be logic about, but function from that inner knowing and take your power and choice back. You will have your life run smoother, more ease. Nothing will be perfect. I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect, but when you're in a difficult situation, following that inner knowing, things will be easier for you. You'll be able to make a decision. It's not that you wouldn't feel emotions if you have emotions, but you will be willing to feel it, let it pass and move past it, where sometimes we don't allow ourselves to feel. So when you follow that inner knowing, you have an inner sense, you have more ease, you work more productive because you'll have a sense of what's next to do. Even when you're working in a more of a logic job, it'll be like, oh, no, got to do this. Or it's like, okay, this is next. And you'll work more efficiently versus in your head, overthinking, worrying, getting hijacked while you're trying to do it. So it's like, I always say, it's like your mind hijacks you and run around like a toddler having a tantrum. And you don't even hear everything. It's screaming in the back. You're trying to be conscious and do your work, but it's like running like a toddler having a tantrum. And it's like, and then you start ignoring it because it's too much. But the thing is, it doesn't shut off. You just stop listening.
Right.
So yeah, so it's, you just got to calm that toddler down. Don't let it run the show, because if it was a real toddler, you're not going to let it run the show either.
Right. Right.
Yeah. It's so important though to be connected, mind and body, right? It's, we as a society, we have been taught to live only from the head, and and to not feel. And so getting in touch with what you are feeling and listening to it, right? Because a lot of times we just don't. And to actually take control of the mind again, like you say, it's almost a retraining that we need to do, right?
Your mind is meant to think, like that's its job. So you're not going to stop it from doing its job, but you will stop it from overthinking and hijack you to that excessive mind chatter. And you get to decide what gets focus. So you don't have to focus on every thought, but you'll give where you feel is right for that focus, depending on what you're
Mhm.
working on. So you might get
Mhm.
a thought pattern that's coming in and it's like, okay, it's not the time. You'll give the focus to something that's going to make you more productive and give you aligned where you're wanting to go. So it's just, you have to be very aware for that. You have to be
Mhm.
conscious. And you know when you're overthinking, when you're overwhelmed, when you're anxious, and when you're stressed, you're in your head.
Mhm.
So, and there's like, frustrate, you're in your head. Like when people tell me, it's like, oh no, I'm not overthinking. I already know because how you're feeling. So it's like you're leaving your body completely out of the equation, but yet your mind and body are trying to communicate because they're connected. And you're leaving your body completely out of it. And with your intuition and your inner guidance, your body gives you physical signs, what's not true for you and what is true for you. So if you're
Yes.
not listening, you're not getting them, or you're chalking it up to something else.
Mhm.
Oh, I feel like, oh, I'm not feeling very good. Oh, I'm really anxious right now. Are you been giving signs what's going on that's not working for you?
Right. And when you're thinking too, I know when I'm overthinking,
Mm-hmm.
there are often times where it isn't even my thoughts that are in my head, right? It's thoughts that have been programmed into my mind or that I've heard other people say, and
Yeah.
then I stop and I think, like, do I even believe that? Is that my thought or does that belong to me?
Yeah.
Right.
I always say like they're yours until you're willing to let them go.
Right. Yeah.
Because we take on like and obviously like from a young age to even start, we take on, you got to realize you have like this openness as a child, that you're in this theta brainwave for many
Mhm.
years before you even have the conscious brain. So you're like, they say like kids are a sponge. It's not a joke. They really are. They're taking it all in. So it's like they're taking what their guardian's belief structure is, whether they're putting it on them, they're listening, they're watching the behaviors, they're creating their own belief structures, and then the world, right? So it's not just the guardians themselves. It's
Mhm.
like, it's what the world. So it's like, or if it's things from your family history. Like, so you have things in your DNA, things in your genes of belief structures that are embedded in you before you're born.
Right.
If it's like from generation to generation, and unfortunately, a good chunk of that sometimes is money. So it's sometimes when I'm working with people, I'll actually say, do you really believe that? And they're like, what? And it just kind of catches them off guard because they didn't question what you're thinking
Yeah.
sometimes. If it's not working for you, do you actually really believe that anymore? Be
Mhm.
willing to question yourself, like get to know yourself. Because something you dreamt about at a 12-year-old, now when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, you're still dreaming about it, desiring to have this, but yet you never checked in with yourself. Do you actually want that anymore?
Right.
Did you desire that? Because I have people that it's like they're living this dream, but yet they don't even want it anymore and they're unhappy and they don't know why. I've got everything I've asked for, but you forgot to check in. You didn't actually want it anymore.
Right.
Right?
Mm.
Like we
You want
forget, like
something
even a
different
vehicle,
now.
we always desire to have a certain vehicle and then you get it. It doesn't work for us anymore. You got kids now, so like the sports car doesn't work anymore. So it's
Right.
like, it's still a wonderful vehicle, but it doesn't work for you.
There's
So it doesn't bring you the joy that things should. Like you should
right.
have
The
joy
big
in your life.
house that I don't want to have to clean, right?
Yeah,
Right?
no doubt.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Victoria, Victoria says, sometimes I'm so analytical that I don't listen to my own knowing. Isn't that the truth? That can happen.
It's very true. It's very common and I get that lots, and that's kind of why part of what I do is teach meditation and just simple breathing techniques,
Mhm.
because even just the simple breathing is taking your focus off your mind and just focus on your breathing, gets you dropped back into your body, gets you dropped back into that, and it's you got to realize you have to practice it.
Yes.
Like it's just not something like, oh, I tried it, doesn't work for me. You
Right.
have like
Right.
the mind works off repetition. We have to create a habit. And then when you create this habit, you have to continue with it. So then it goes on the part of your mind that runs 90% of your life onto autopilot. You needed to have it automated. So then you can be more natural with it. It's like when you go, like when you were little, you learned to walk, you're falling, you're going back. And so you were in your head so much when you were walking. And now it's like when you walk, do you say left, right, or watch your feet to make sure they're going? No, you naturally, it's part of what's on autopilot. So what's on autopilot, there's some really good stuff that's on autopilot, like driving. Do you constantly have to tell yourself consciously, put that signal light on? Now you got to turn. Now you got to do this. You do the you naturally do that stuff now. So
Mhm.
even when you're driving, if you think about if you're on the highway for a long distance, is there a portion of time sometimes you forget passing certain things? So think about it. You started thinking, your conscious mind disappeared in la la land to think, but your unconscious mind kicked in because it was already programmed in there automatically and took over for you so you weren't in the ditch.
Mhm.
So it's running. So there are good things about the unconscious. It's just the stuff that doesn't work for us anymore. We need to tap into and say, okay, it's time for you to get out. Need something else in there that's working for me to align me to where I really want to go now. Yeah,
Mhm.
so get the other stuff out. But yeah, there is good in there too. So it's not all bad.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for people that are, kind of experiencing a little bit of grief, or like, how do you get into the flow of life? How do you just become able to flow with things instead of being so anxious or overwhelmed?
Yeah. So
Or,
to really get into the flow of things is there are like a bunch of techniques, but first, one of the first things really is like I call the inner GPS. So it's like you need to set your GPS to where you're going. Otherwise, life is like this. It has no real direction. You'll have some inner heart desires that you kind of have that you're doing, but it's like set a direction, but you got to be crystal clear on that. Like, where are you going? What is it you want to do? What do you want to show up? What do you want manifested? What are your intentions? So it's about getting super crystal clear on that. And I find that I didn't realize it until I started working more with the mind. There's so many people that don't even know what that is.
Right.
They've created this identity, like, like we're a mom, we're a wife, we're this, and they forgot that we are individuals, like we are our own person, and we don't develop ourselves anymore. We shut that part off. So I work with people just getting crystal clear on what that is. And if they're not sure yet and they're struggling with it, is just to say, I choose to live a life I love. So then it starts kind of getting that fog mind out of the way a bit. Choose that. The other part is getting crystal clear on where you are right now compared to where you're going. Because sometimes we don't want to admit that at a certain age, we aren't where we thought we would be.
Right.
And we don't want to admit it to ourselves that either, like divorce comes up, or it's like you're not at the career you thought you would be at, or some people like they wanted kids but don't have kids. And so you sometimes don't want to admit that you're not there. Get crystal clear on where you are. Because if you're going to go on a trip, you need to say where you're going. And you can't be like, I'm not going to tell you where I'm at. Nope. Not willing to admit where I'm at. So it doesn't have your location to give you directions to get there. You can't sit there and pout, and I'm not admitting, no, I'm not going to tell you that I'm in whatever city or whatever address. You have to be crystal clear where the heck you're going and where you are right now. And then whatever is in the way that does not align to you to get there will pop up. So this is where your awareness is really good. Because I get a lot of people will be like, well, I'm just not meant to do that because this happened, that happened. No, it showed up because it was in the way. Whether it be a habit or like an old emotional attachment you have to something, or a belief structure, a thought pattern you have, it pops up because it's no longer aligned to where you're going. So you have to be willing to let that stuff go. And like, granted, we need some help with certain things. It's not just easy, like, okay, I'll just pivot and keep going. Just be aware of it. And then as we're doing that, that's where we kind of put into our inner guidance, like that inner knowing, that intuition, that gut feeling, whatever you want to call it. Everybody has something different. It is drop into your heart center, be willing to be connected, head, heart, and in flow and beyond. Because you will get a knowing, and we all get it. We all have this capability. And it's about and the more you do it, the easier it gets. And the easy way is just to start kind of like with breathing exercises, and just kind of like, even just imagine that you're breathing through your heart up, and then just keep going and be willing to be only focused on that. And when your mind hijacks you, be kind to yourself, just be aware it hijacked you and go back to what you were doing. And the more you do those things in just simple breathing, even, the space gets bigger and bigger where you have that flow. So just give yourself permission to just be in practice with it, that it's a practice, and be kind to yourself, because that's where we sometimes aren't kind, because it's like, we're not getting it. Someone else is doing it better than me. I should be further. No, just be kind. And whatever shows up, stop resisting it, because when you resist something, it's like you put a block up, you stop yourself from seeing any other possibility. And guess what happens then? We create more stress, more overwhelmed, because we're not willing to see it, how it's showing up. So just anything, like our kids are yelling at us, it's be in flow with that. It's about being in flow. Or it's like our car broke down. Be in flow. And I used to hate this with a lot of other modalities I'd get. It would be like, be in flow. And I never got it for the longest time. Because for me, in my head, be in flow was to be in flow with life, as in like what showed up in the world. Like I had to be like this negative thing, and I had to accept it all, and nothing was good enough. Where flow is just about being aware that it showed up and make a choice what's true for you. So it's like a water flowing down the stream. There's a rock, it flows around, it flows, like it's just being in flow. Don't let things stop you. Don't start complaining. Don't start getting mad about stuff. And we're like, that would stump me like years ago. It'd be like, be in flow. And I'd be like, it would irritate me. Like, be in flow. So like, that was the last thing, like as a teenager, like, be in flow. You got to listen to everybody else, do what everybody else does. It's not that. It's about being in flow. It shows up, you have a choice.
Right. I have an example I think that fits that really well, and that is this last summer, down the block from me, so about a block and a half away, they were doing construction, which made me have to go a couple minutes out of my way to another street, right?
Yeah.
And so many people were complaining, like, I can't believe this is going to take all summer and it's blocking, and I got to go around, and they're complaining. But so rather than complain, I chose to say, you know what, I'm grateful that they're fixing this, because boy, we're going to have an incredible street to be able to drive down when it's done.
Yeah.
So just accepting and allowing it, and knowing that it's part of what is right now, and just be in flow with that, and not let it bother me, not let it.
Yeah. Like, realize, like, don't pretend you don't have a choice.
Right.
Just because something showed up the way you didn't like it, don't pretend you don't have a choice. Because if you're going to pretend you don't have a choice, not choosing still a choice.
Yes.
And it makes you a victim. Because if you're going to decide somebody else or some situation is the problem, now you said, you have my power. I can't change anything because you did this to me. You've changed my routine. I can't do this. No,
Right.
stop giving your power back. And so like for me, like that was like oh God, am I giving my power back? That was like a game changer for me. Like, I didn't want that. Someone else is controlling my life. And that's what happens, is then we play the victim because somebody did, oh, this is horrible. And like now, like people, something will come and they'll say something and I'll respond and they'll be like, oh, leave it to you to find the positive out of that one. There's something good in everything. And it doesn't mean positive overrides everything. It just means be in the space of being what shows up. What's the obvious here? And then what's my choice? And what space do you want to be in? Because that's where I come from. It's like the question, what space do I want to be in? Do I want to be in the space that is going to complain about the construction? Or do I want to be in the space that gives me possibilities of what else I can do or how I can see things differently?
Right.
You know, like maybe when you change your path, you were able to bump into an old friend that you haven't seen for a while. Like there's a reason we're being pivoted in another direction. So stop resisting it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the universe is the how and the when things show up. You're the what and taking the action by choice. But you have to have that faith, that trust that it's just coming and being aligned. But if you're going to stop it and you wonder why life isn't changing for you, well, I won't say any more.
Well said.
Absolutely.
I think we all need to hear it in some way, shape, or form.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And it's good to have some people around you that are going to be that support for you, that kind of keeps you pushing along, because we will have moments that we need. So I always say, like, take your moment. If something showed up and you feel you need to complain about it or just get it off your chest, I always say take your moment, but don't make it a part of your day. It's a moment. Get it off your chest. Don't go and tell, you're phoning your mom, now you're phoning your sister, you're phoning your best friend, now all of a sudden the cashier's hearing about it. And right, like, people, don't tell me, people that do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I've worked with people like that. Yeah. Right? So it's like, get it off your chest, brush it off you. That was obvious. That's what happened. Now, what are my choices here? How do I move past this? Yep, some things are really shitty. But guess what? They don't have to stay that way. You have choice in every situation.
Yes.
And growth comes with uncomfortable. So just keep moving forward and just be willing. And sometimes you have to let people go out of your space that are just going to tether you down if you're ready for change. You don't have to create a fight. It's just sometimes as you change, you separate a little bit further, and now they become an acquaintance.
Yes.
We don't have to create like this whole fight, or it's like, oh, I got to talk to them. And it's like, no, this is your journey. Right. You don't have to force things on people. It's just allow things happen naturally sometimes too. And just be willing to, sometimes you got to let some people go or some situations go. You can't change something. So what can you change in that situation? Is it your reaction? Is it your location? There's always something you can change in everything. Just be willing to see it. And if you go into the overwhelm or the frustration or the anger or the stress about it, you shut yourself off of the possibilities of something different, because you can't see it anymore, because they can't live in the same space. Possibilities and stress do not live in the same space. So you decide, what space do you want to live in? As my phone decides to listen in again.
That's okay. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yes. And you know what? When something stresses me out or I'm feeling anxious about something, I do remove myself from that situation or remove myself from that person or that space, because I need to do what's right for me and what's best for me.
Yeah.
And not for the other person. I'm only here in this being, right?
Well, and what we choose isn't personal to somebody else.
Right.
They might take it personal, but that's not your responsibility.
Right.
If you're the responsibility of yourself. And if you need to step back, you need to choose that, because we find so many times now it's like people are bragging that they're so busy, they're doing this, they're doing that. It's like, that's not a badge of honor.
Right.
Like, you need to be willing to check in with yourself. If you need a day or you need some time to yourself, take it before you need it.
Right.
Like, be aware when you kind of get signs, okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed, or whatever's coming up for you, be willing. And the other thing is, I've noticed with clients and myself, is have a list. I call it kind of a mental health kit. Is have some stuff set aside. What brings you joy? Like, is it certain music, people you talk to? Because when we do get into a space that we're feeling overwhelmed or a little bit stressed out, we are not clear enough to make choices.
Right.
So it's like, have that stuff ready. Like it's like a kit, paper, whatever, like have things written down. Have your chocolate bar if that's the fix you need when you know
Right.
a little bit. But have stuff ready, or if it's a tool, or if it's a process or a technique that you know really works for you. If it's like have a spa gift certificate available for yourself to remind yourself, oh God, I could really use that right now. Give yourself those reminders, because we're not as clear when we're overwhelmed.
No, I know when I'm in my shit, I don't
Right?
think
Like you
to
just
go do
aren't.
that thing. Yeah.
So get to know yourself. So what is it? Like people
Mhm.
like in here now, like I've started at my own house, is we call them wellness recharge days. So it's like when they're like, my little one took one today, like she was just starting to get overwhelmed. You got to think, when you're in a group of people, how many different personalities, how many different emotions are just being piled on you, and you can only take so much sometimes. And so you need to step back and just like, okay, I just need some time here. And yeah, what's your wellness recharge? Is that being by yourself? Is that being with friends and listening to loud music? Be willing to know what you need and take it when you're noticing you're going to need it, or schedule it in before you need it,
Yeah.
and you'll enjoy it more.
Yeah, do it when you can enjoy it more, right? When you're not
Absolutely. Like
deep
take
in
that
it.
time.
Yeah.
I agree. Beautiful. Well said.
So, Shawna, you
Mhm.
do some online work with clients. So you do your mindfulness life coaching online, is that correct?
Yeah, I do. I just do a combination. It's coaching. It's whatever the client needs. So it's about getting them out of the space that they're looking to no longer be in.
Right.
Yeah, I do that, and I do it by video calls or by phone, and I do some in person. It's becoming less and less in person, just with things that are going on now.
Yeah.
And I'm in the process of working and getting a program together where people can do it online and work through it as a group. I've also got, I think it should be probably ready for actually the next couple of weeks or so. I'm going to do a 5-day free challenge on unleashing your inner power. And it'll be talking about like the setting the inner GPS,
Mm,
getting inflow and in your inner guidance. So it'll give you a bit of a taster, a little bit like tonight, a little bit more into that. And then the program will obviously be a little more extensive. I'll work with them a little bit more,
right.
because part of what I do are recodes with the mind, and it's working with the super conscious level of things, of uncreating what has already been created, because we have created what's in our mind. We've created the emotion, we've created the belief structure. So guess what? We can uncreate it.
Right.
So we learn to talk at a higher level of consciousness, and we uncreate that. And
Okay.
so I work with that. So it'll be more of that within the programming and stuff. So that has been like a game changer in my own life, because I can do it for myself. Or I've been so lucky to have some really great mentors and coaches that there's always somebody at my fingertips. It's like, I just can't shake this. Because there's stuff
Mm-hmm.
that comes up, even if you got all these tools and all these processes,
Right.
you sometimes can only see it through your own filters of your own experiences and your own emotions, that you need an outsider to step in and be
Yes.
like, because what you think it is, a lot of time isn't even what it is.
Right.
Because like what we're
Absolutely.
doing, it's a symptom. It's not actually what is really going on. So yeah, we can get stuck in our own stuff.
Oh, isn't that true?
Yeah,
And it's important that the healer does get healed.
absolutely. I think everybody needs a coach, because we can only see what we know. We only know what we know, and we can only see what we see.
Yes.
And we can't see
Right.
past our own stuff sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, I think everybody needs a coach in one level or not, maybe not all the time, but the moment you feel that you're not getting what you want showing up in your life, you can't seem to get past it, and you got patterns, you need a coach.
Yes. I agree
Or you're
100%.
willing to stay in that pattern, And
There
that's
you go.
okay too. Like, I'm not here to judge either way. If that's where you are, that's okay too.
Mhm.
You know, maybe you're here to teach other people around you something different.
Right.
Yeah.
So Shawna, in the comments below, when we're done, can you add a little link for where our listeners can find your information as well as the 5-day challenge? And then I would ask that when the 5-day challenge comes around, if you can just post it in our group as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. When we're done here, I can, send that into the comments for sure. Absolutely. Definitely.
Fantastic.
Be happy to.
Super.
I was kind of
And so-
wondering, Shawna,
Mhm.
do you have any stories or a story that you can share of witnessing manifestation that has happened with your clients, or like big
Like,
changes that you've seen
that I have
happen,
manifested,
that
um,
like your clients have?
clients have.
Yeah.
It's a variation because clients have anywhere from like a physical thing is completely manifest differently, because when they come in, I had one client, she had shoulder pain for, I think it was 9 years. And she had come in, and all we did was we did some recoding on her, but her choice was to be in a healthy body. So she took away a focus, put giving the pain the focus, and created her focus to be the healthy body. So then, as what was showing up, we recoded for her. And after one session, it was completely gone.
Wow.
So it's not just like our mental stuff. It happens physically because we lock things in our body. So if there's emotions that we don't deal with, they get locked in our body. And if we continuously not deal with it, they then can create more toxins in our body, and then it creates something more physical. Other things people have manifested are vehicles, appliances. um, it completely varies on what they're working through.
Right.
Sometimes I tell them just to have fun with it, like do something small. So then it reminds themselves that it's working, because some things take a lot longer. So sometimes people have manifested a dime. Some people manifested a quarter, because if you're not clear, that one they changed quickly though. They didn't really mean to do a quarter, is they asked for more money, but they weren't clear, because more money is the next point of what you get money. So it could be a paycheck. So now what you're choosing to ask for has been given. It's already gifted. So it doesn't, so you got to be very clear on what more
Yes.
money is. Is it a quarter that you pick up? That's more than you had 2 seconds ago.
Mhm.
So that's why we have to get crystal clear, because I'll tell you one that I thought was quite, for myself, is I had the kids, I was making lunch for them a few years ago. And I was out of bread. So I had to be creative in what they went for their lunches, crackers, everything else. And I'm like, oh gosh, I need to get some bread. And just because some things I do naturally now, I was on the way to take my kids to school. And then down the road, literally no word of a lie, there was a loaf of bread on the side of the road that was my brand that I would do, that we buy. And I just like, universe, you were funny, but I'm not pulling over. But when I was a single mom, I probably would have pulled over and picked up that damn loaf of bread. So, there's a sense of
That's
humor
awesome.
out there. So, yes, so it's interesting, but yeah, it was there, and I looked, and I had to look twice, because I'm like,
Yeah.
in my head, it was
No
just a matter
doubt.
of just me going to, making a point that I had time to go to the store. But all of a sudden I looked, and it was the same brand. So I'm just like, I'm not pulling over.
Oh,
Thank you,
Wow.
but no, well, someone
Yeah.
else can have that.
the universe
Yeah.
definitely does have a sense of humor, that's for sure.
Yeah. So be crystal clear.
Yes.
So like I said, the universe is the how and the when. So
Yeah.
there was the how, there was the when.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh. So, Shawna, you also do hypnotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you do that via distance as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can do everything distance. And I kind of create like the magnetic, mind stuff and the hypnotherapy together, because it's all working on a higher conscious level, like on a different brainwave. So I've kind of combined my own technique with the two of them together. So yeah, you can do that, and you can learn, like you can do it yourself. So I teach my clients to kind of do some of that stuff on their own too, so they're not having to come to me, because it's about giving them the power to do some of the things on their own too. So yeah, it's very easy to do by distance. Yeah.
Excellent. Super. So, is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you'd like our listeners to know about what you do?
What I do? Well, I do a lot of things now. There is, like, I do still do a lot of energy healing and stuff too. I don't necessarily advertise that because I collaborate it all within like my sessions. So if somebody needs something, because I look at it, everybody's an individual. They're coming and say they need this, but not necessarily that's what ends up what they need. So I pretty much encompass everything that I've ever trained with into individual sessions. And I'm branching out more to doing more group sessions. So it's like you're going to get the best of all the worlds of the training that I've received. And not all the sessions are going to look exactly alike. There is going to be some similarities, of course, because I gravitate more towards where there's going to be some quicker change, but sometimes people aren't quite ready for that and they need something different.
Right.
So it's all combined into one session. So it's like you're going to get, like, I do Reiki, there's Theta, like I've got, what don't I have? Like, I'm almost thinking, like, what don't I have at this point? Like, I was obsessed with so much training for so long that it was just like, I thought that's all I did. It was just masterfully just train. I'm a master at training. So yeah, so I do that, and I'm all about, anytime they walk away from a session, I'm not done with them. So if they have a question, I'm still there for them. I don't leave anybody hanging. So it's like, if you just have a simple question, because when you walk away, you're still processing.
Right.
Like you're becoming, you're different, because you're just different, because you're going to see things differently, because you're taking a different view. You're clearing the path. So you may have things that come up, and I don't want people to be out there and be like, oh God, this showed up. There's no dumb questions. There just really isn't. So it's like, if they needed just shoot me a message, and when it's good for me, I will respond. It might not be in that moment, but I will always respond, because we need to have somebody there during the process, because sometimes we can be processing up to a week, because our mind and body are connected and they don't always stay at the same speed.
Right.
So they need some adjusting. So yeah, so besides outside a session, it's usually by email or text. It's like, I don't do so much phone calls anymore, because like by that time I'm with my family are priority. But the moment I have just a quick moment, I have no problems responding to people and making sure they're doing well.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful, because you don't always get that kind of support, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I always, and it's something that we all need. Like, I know myself, it's like, or after you walk away from something and you get just like that clarity. I forgot to ask this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like,
Yeah, totally.
That was my number one question, and I forgot to ask.
Right? It's like, or it's like you go to start to do something. Oh, it's like it kicks in, and and you don't want to wait. I'll wait till the next time, and then you forget, and it's like, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, things are answered. Simple, might as well just here. Or I even give like just techniques. Like some people are stressing out. It's like, okay, just do this, and I'll give them a little bit of a technique or a process.
Right.
I'm here to serve people, and so it's like, what's best for them. I have great people in my world that do that for me, so I'm gifting that back. I paid for a lot of training, but I'm not going to be like, oh, everything's not about money. So it's not like, okay, well, I averaged that out. That would have cost me, okay, like here's an invoice.
Right.
So it's like, here, if it's going to help them, and maybe they might not come back, but chances are I get a lot from word of mouth. So it's like, where I haven't heard from a client for a couple of years, all of a sudden out of nowhere, they've sent me 2 or 3 other clients.
Right.
So you're always gifted back one way or the other. So I don't look at it that somebody owes me something. it's going to give back to me in some other way in this world. It doesn't
Right.
have to come back with the person that I gift it to. It can come back somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. You've shared a lot of fantastic information with us
Mhm.
tonight, and lots to think about. And again, we'll get you to, in the comments, write your contact information and then about your 5-day challenge, and when that comes up, we'll get you to
Absolutely.
post that. That would be wonderful. Let's come to the point in the show where I'm going to ask you some quick shot questions, and just answer as quick as you can. And then Cindy will have a question for you as well.
Okay.
So the first one is, if you were a flower, what would you be?
Ooh, I love flowers. We'll go with lily.
All right. Who do you admire most?
Admire most? I've got, you know what? I have been blessed with so many mentors and coaches, and I think, just my immediate family I admire most, because we go through a lot of changes in this household, and they really go with the flow with what mom wants.
Nice.
It's always for the good, like for the good, like it's nothing bad, but I'd have to say I admire them that my kids and my husband, that they really support me with whatever I'm doing, changing, or if I need time to myself. Like, I admire them, how really supportive they are for me.
Wonderful. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Well, outside of this house, can't travel much. But right now, I'd have to say we've been talking, because travel is going to be a little bit iffy. And if it's going to stay iffy, probably Niagara Falls, stay in Canada for a bit.
Mm-hmm. Anything that you were afraid of?
Gosh, I gotta say there's not a whole lot of afraid in my world, but my biggest resistance, probably social media.
Mm. Okay, if you could paint anything, what would it be?
If I can paint anything,
Yeah,
probably like just Mother Nature in some way or another, something scenic.
nice. What is the best compliment you've ever received?
The best compliment. Gosh, some good ones out there.
Mhm.
You know what? I have to say the one that seems to pop is um, that they enjoy being in my space, even if we're not doing anything.
Nice. And my last question is, what's the last thing you've manifested?
The last thing I manifested, it's funny you say that. It was $40
Oh,
that came out of my dryer. I asked for 50, but I got 40, and I don't know, because I was washing my clothes and I never put cash in my clothes.
perfect.
So that's funny. Yeah. So that's what I manifested last. But we're always manifesting.
Mhm.
Like we're manifesting everything that shows up in our world. Like, we're a part of our own manifestation. So we're always doing it. But the conscious thing I did, I asked for 50 and I got 40. So I still said thank you.
Sweet. And Cindy has one last question for you.
Okay.
If you were able to climb to the highest mountaintop and the whole world could hear what you had to say, what would you say?
What would I say?
Mhm.
I would yell, because everybody would be listening, is be you no matter what. No matter what. Be you.
Mhm. Love it.
Be you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
No matter
Awesome.
what you think about yourself, no matter what anybody else thinks about you, just be you. Yeah.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much, Shawna, for being here tonight. We are so happy that you were able to join us on TTSN. We look forward to reading through comments. We look forward to your 5-day challenge that's coming up. And we look forward to some of our listeners being able to connect with you. Thank you
Yes.
again for being here. And we want to thank everybody who has been watching with us. And we hope you have a great rest of your week. We're signing off from TTSN.
Right. Thanks for having me, ladies. It was awesome. Bye.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.